"Drop the weapon. Get on the ground now," the SWAT officer bellowed, his rifle aimed squarely at John Mac McKinley, 68, who stood frozen in his own doorway, his only weapon the leash of his golden retriever service dog, Valor. Before Mac could fully process the chaotic shouts, a jolt of electricity seared through him. He collapsed, Valor barking frantically beside him as the world went black. They'd gotten the wrong house. 6 minutes later, as Mac lay dazed on his porch, the suburban street erupted. Not with more police sirens, but with the heavy rumble of military vehicles. The National Guard had arrived, and they weren't there for a parade. If you believe no hero deserves such a horrifying mistake, type justice below. John Mac McKinley was a man who found solace in routine and the unwavering companionship of Valor, his highly trained PTSD service dog. A retired Army Master Sergeant with multiple combat tours, Mac lived a quiet life in a modest suburban neighborhood. His small house was his sanctuary, the garden, his therapy. The demons of war still visited him in the dead of night, but Valor was always there, a warm, reassuring presence, trained to wake him from nightmares and ground him during anxiety attacks. He was known on his street as a quiet, kind widower, who kept to himself but always had a friendly nod for neighbors. He meticulously maintained his lawn, flew the flag on holidays, and embodied the kind of unassuming patriotism that rarely drew attention. That Tuesday morning was like any other. Mac had just finished his coffee and was about to take Valor for their daily walk when the peace of his quiet street was shattered. He heard shouting, then the screech of tires. Confused, he opened his front door, Valor by his side on his leash, to see his front yard swarming with heavily armed men in tactical gear, a full SWAT team, weapons raised, converging on his house. "Police! Search warrant! Hands where I can see them!" The commands were overlapping, aggressive, disorienting. Mac, a man trained in de-escalation and clear communication under extreme stress, instinctively raised his empty hands, trying to assess the threat, trying to understand the catastrophic error that was clearly unfolding. Valor, though trained for calm, sensed his handler's sudden distress and let out a low, protective growl, standing firmly by Mac's leg. "He's got a dog, aggressive animal," one officer shouted, his voice tight with adrenaline. "Secure the subject," another commanded. Mac tried to speak, to explain. "Wait, this is my home. There's a mistake. My dog is a service animal." But his words were lost in the cacophony of tactical shouts and the adrenaline-fueled tension. He saw the red dot of a laser sight dance across his chest. He saw the unyielding, masked faces, the barrels of rifles. He knew this level of force was meant for hardened criminals, not an elderly veteran standing in his own doorway with his service dog. Before he could utter another word, before he could even fully comprehend the wrongness of it all, a young officer, amped up and misinterpreting Valor's protective stance as aggression, yelled, "Taser! Taser! Taser!" and fired. The barbs hit Max squarely in the chest. An agonizing, paralyzing jolt of electricity coursed through his body. His legs buckled. He crashed to the porch, the leash slipping from his spasming hand. Valor, barking wildly now, a mixture of fear and fury, tried to shield Mac, nudging his face, then barking defiantly at the advancing officers. Mac lay there, his body convulsing, the world a blur of pain and confusion, the smell of ozone sharp in his nostrils. He heard an officer yell, "Dog's loose! Potential threat!" He tried to call out, to protect Valor, but his voice wouldn't work, his muscles locked in agonizing contractions. This wasn't combat. This was his front porch. This was a mistake that felt like a betrayal. As Max slowly regained a semblance of control over his twitching limbs, the SWAT team swarmed his small house. He heard doors crashing open, furniture being overturned, shouts of "Clear!" echoing from within. He was roughly handcuffed, still dazed, his heart pounding erratically from the taser. Valor was eventually subdued, not with force, but by a more experienced officer who recognized the service vest beneath the dog's agitated state and used calming commands. Mac was dragged unceremoniously to his feet and made to sit on his own porch steps, surrounded by armed men, a prisoner in his own home. He tried again to explain. "You've got the wrong house," he rasped, his throat raw. "I'm John McKinley, Master Sergeant retired. This is 121 Oak Street. Who are you looking for?" The SWAT team leader, a Captain Miller, finally approached, looking at a crumpled warrant in his hand. He compared the address on the warrant to Mac's house number, then to the house next door, 123 Oak Street, which was nearly identical in appearance. A flicker of doubt, then dawning horror, crossed Miller's face. He'd briefed his team on 121 based on an outdated informant tip that hadn't been cross-verified with newer intel pointing to 123. A catastrophic, almost unbelievable error. "Oh, hell," Miller muttered under his breath, loud enough for Mac to hear. He quickly ordered his men to secure Valor, who was now whimpering beside Mac, licking his hand, and to cease the search of Mac's home. But the damage was done. Mac's house was trashed, his dignity violated, his body still aching from the taser, his service dog traumatized. Miller approached Mac, his demeanor shifting from tactical commander to deeply chagrined officer. "Mr. McKinley, sir, there's been a significant error. We had a warrant for a high-risk narcotics trafficker believed to be at this address. It seems our intelligence was flawed. The target is likely next door." Mac just stared at him, the pain, the humiliation, the sheer incompetence of it all washing over him. "Flawed intelligence?" he repeated, his voice hoarse. "You tased an old soldier on his own porch because of flawed intelligence?" Before Miller could respond, before any further apologies or explanations could be offered, a new sound cut through the suburban quiet. It wasn't police sirens. It was deeper, more resonant. The unmistakable rumble of heavy military vehicles approaching at speed. The first olive-drab Humvee turned onto Oak Street, followed by two more, then a larger troop transport vehicle. They didn't just arrive. They deployed with a practiced efficiency that made the SWAT team's earlier chaotic entry look amateurish. Soldiers in full combat gear, carrying M4 rifles, disembarked quickly and quietly, establishing a perimeter around the entire block, including both Mac's house and the neighboring 123 Oak Street, where the actual suspect was supposed to be. The SWAT officers looked on, stunned and confused, their authority suddenly, unequivocally, superseded. Neighbors peered from behind curtains, their earlier curiosity turning to bewildered awe. This was no longer just a police raid gone wrong. This was something else entirely. From the lead Humvee, a figure emerged who radiated command. He was older, wearing the crisp duty uniform of a major general, 2 stars gleaming on his collar. It was Major General Samuel Armitage, commander of the State National Guard, and, as fate would have it, Mac McKinley's former battalion commander from his last active duty assignment, a man Mac had pulled from a burning APC years ago. General Armitage had been in the air, en route to a state disaster preparedness drill, when an urgent scrambled message had reached his helicopter. A highly decorated retired Master Sergeant John McKinley had been mistakenly tased and his home raided by local SWAT during a botched warrant service. The governor, alerted by a frantic call from a well-connected veterans advocacy group Mac had managed to contact via a quick text to a friend just before the tasing, had authorized immediate National Guard intervention to secure the situation and ensure the welfare of a distinguished veteran. General Armitage recognized Mac's name instantly. He'd diverted his flight and mobilized the nearest quick reaction force. He strode directly towards Mac's porch, his eyes taking in Mac's disheveled state, the still twitching remnants of the taser barbs on his shirt, the trashed interior of his home visible through the open door, and Valor cowering protectively beside him. Armitage's face, usually stern but fair, became a mask of cold fury. He ignored the SWAT Captain Miller, who tried to intercept him with stammered explanations. General Armitage knelt beside Mac, his voice gentle but firm. "Mac? John? It's Sam Armitage. Are you all right, old friend?" Mac looked up, his eyes clearing slightly as he recognized the general. A flicker of his old NCO resilience returned. "Sam, General, bit of a rough morning. Mistaken identity, they say." Armitage's gaze swept over the taser wires still clinging to Mac's shirt, then to Captain Miller. Mistaken identity. Armitage stood, his full height and rank seeming to diminish the SWAT commander. "Captain, You tased a decorated master sergeant, a man who has faced enemy fire without flinching, on his own property, because your team couldn't read a house number correctly. Miller began to explain about high-risk warrants, informant intel, officer safety protocols, but the general cut him off. Officer safety is paramount, Captain. So is competent intelligence, proper procedure, and de-escalation. What I see here is a catastrophic failure on all fronts, resulting in the assault of a U.S. Army veteran and the terrorizing of his service animal. He gestured to the National Guard soldiers now securing the entire area. My men will take it from here. Your team will withdraw. Now, leave all evidence and reports with my XO. The State Police and the Department of Justice will be conducting a full investigation into this incident. Captain Miller, outranked and outmaneuvered, could only nod, his face grim. The SWAT team began a sullen, humiliated withdrawal under the watchful eyes of the National Guard. General Armitage then turned his attention to ensuring Mac received immediate medical attention. A National Guard medic was already by Mac's side, checking his vitals. Valor needs checking too, Mac managed to say, his concern for his service dog overriding his own discomfort. Absolutely, Armitage agreed. He then made another call, this one to the governor's office, updating him and requesting state-level intervention to repair Mac's home and provide any necessary long-term support. The high-risk narcotics trafficker next door at 123 Oak Street, alerted by the initial commotion and then the arrival of the military, was apprehended without incident by a very surprised and now very cautious separate police unit an hour later, after the National Guard had meticulously secured the correct address. The aftermath for Mac McKinley was a whirlwind, but a supportive one. General Armitage personally oversaw his care and the restoration of his home. The National Guard engineers, as a training exercise, repaired his door, cleaned his house, and even fixed a leaky faucet Mac had been meaning to get to. Valor was given a clean bill of health by a military veterinarian. The governor issued a public apology to Mac, condemning the SWAT team's error and promising a thorough review of procedures. Captain Miller and the officer who fired the taser were placed on administrative leave pending the investigation, their careers likely over. The city faced a significant lawsuit, which was quickly settled in Mac's favor, though Mac insisted most of the funds go to veterans' charities and service dog training programs. He didn't want profit. He wanted accountability and change. The National Guard presence remained on Oak Street for the rest of the day, a visible symbol of a promise kept, a line drawn. Neighbors brought Mac food and offered support, their earlier fear replaced by respect and a newfound understanding of the quiet veteran who lived among them. General Armitage visited Mac several times in the following weeks. "You know, Mac," he said during one visit as Valor snoozed at their feet, "sometimes the system fails the very people it's sworn to protect. But it's our job, those of us who still wear the uniform or remember what it stands for, to make it right." Mac, sitting in his repaired home, a new sense of security settling around him, simply nodded. The taser marks would fade. The fear would lessen. What remained was the knowledge that even in the darkest, most mistaken moments, there were still those who remembered, those who would answer the call, and those for whom no man left behind was more than just a motto. It was a sacred, operational imperative. Because when a hero is wronged, sometimes it takes the quiet thunder of true authority to restore not just order, but honor itself. Subscribe to this channel if you believe that accountability matters, and that our veterans and their service animals deserve nothing less than our utmost respect and protection.